Amen. The Sunnah Aten Ranebenam. 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 Never Ranebenam. Amen. Nasur Aten 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 Ranebenam. To our answer.
I've not heard you sing it so much. Beautiful.
Do an answer. All right. So it looks like we got some people in the building. That's what's up. Give thanks. Okay, so do an answer. Welcome, Uncle Ma'at, to our regularly scheduled communion. So we're going to begin with our opening prayer, and then we will transition into the roll call, and then we will commence with our communion message today. All right. So please join me in the opening prayer by saying, "I'm a two in Panatir. Sawek tuamentin panatir, audu auma, kedi paheru." And the translation is, give yourself to Netta daily, keep yourself for Netta daily, and may tomorrow be as today. We give homage to the Creator, who is like our Father and who is like our Mother, who is everything that we can perceive and everything that we cannot perceive, who is everything yet is no thing, who comes to us in the form of the Netaru Ra, who is the light of the heavens, the light of the inner planes, as well as the light of our lives, who shines the light for us on the path of Ma'ati, which is the path of truth, justice, righteousness, and harmonious balance, who comes to us in the form of the light of vitality, giving us the strength and the endurance to live and act upon that which we know to be true. Homage to you, the one who shines in and through us as a beacon of light for those who are blind to the facts of their place, their position, and their responsibility in the divine scheme of things. May we be Ma'akaru, thought, word, and deed, to our highest reality, and in the moments of crises and the dark nights of the soul, when it appears that everyone and everything else has let us down, so it is, and so shall it be. Everyone say, Amen Ma'at.
Amen Ma'at.
Ma'akaru. Dua Netter. All right. So let's get into this roll call. Let's see where everyone is joining us from. We've got quite a number of people on the line on Facebook and a number of people on the line on YouTube. Happy to see our YouTube audience growing. That's what's up. Give thanks. I know I saw a couple people who was a little early on the roll call, so let me see if I can get those locations in here. Let's see. Saw Anukuru in Houston, Texas. Dua for joining us, brother. I got Kathy in Camden. That's what's up. Oklahoma.
Okay.
Asrar joining us from Oklahoma. Deborah joining us from Trinidad.
Wow.
That's what's up. And we got all the way from Tulsa, someone in Edmond, Oklahoma. That's what's up. All right, y'all. Oklahoma in the building. Okay. Let me see. Got Cleveland, Ohio. Got South Africa on YouTube. That's what's up. Flint, Michigan in the house. London in the house. South Jersey in the house. The center of the universe, Brooklyn, is in the building. We got Boston. We got Spartanburg, South Carolina, Connecticut, Atlanta. We a New Jeru, Woodbury, New Jersey, Harlem, New York, New Rochelle, Newark, New Jersey, Trinidad and Tobago. We got the Lower East Side of Manhattan, Brooklyn, Newcastle, Delaware, White Plains, North Carolina, Connecticut, Orange, New Jersey, and East Orange. We got Philly, Oaktown, California. Wow. All over the place. Trenton, the Bronx. Yes. Far and wide represented. From Oakland, California, all the way to South Africa. That's quite an amount of land to cover. That's amazing. Dua Netter. Dua Netter.
Ask them to hear us well, because I know we have the fan on.
Yeah, can you guys hear us okay? Let me get like some thumbs ups or some yeses in the comments. Just let me know you guys can hear us okay. Uncle my aunt Sakara joining us from Westchester. That's what's up. I got a yes, they can hear us on YouTube. We're getting some thumbs up on Facebook so they can hear us on Facebook. Houston, Texas in the building. Yes, yes. Okay, Dua. I see the thumbs ups. Yes, yes. Okay, good. You know, it's summertime. It's getting warmer, so we gotta have the fan going.
At least the fan.
At least the fan.
Turn off the AC and leave the fan on.
Yeah, we want y'all to still be able to hear us, but also we don't want to.
Rocker in the house, got the curry head, we got the Sir Chef on the couch, so we got a room full of people. So.
Yes, no social distancing.
No mask.
No mask.
All risk, no risk, no reward.
Yes, give thanks to Aneta. Okay. All right, so I guess my quick announcement will just be that our first round chemical class is starting on Friday. I'm super excited.
Is it too late for anybody to join?
It's not too late for anybody to join. We still have a couple days. You guys can join. I will say that we have some course materials that were mailed out. If you join this week, you probably won't receive them by Friday. So you'll get them after the first class. But if you're okay with that, you can still join the class. Reach out to us and so we can start to make arrangements for you to join the first slot class. We've got a big class. I think it's like 21 people, which is one of our biggest classes since in like a decade or something like that. It's a big class in a while, and so we're really excited. People of all different backgrounds from all different areas. And we're just excited about the journey. The class, the way we teach First Eye evolved based on the group of people in the course, and just to have so many different people with so many different backgrounds. I'm just looking forward to the conversations and the questions that you guys ask, and the way that we get to expound upon and talk about this legacy and grow in our understanding of this legacy through this interaction and through this dialogue. So we're real excited about that. And looking forward to getting into that this Friday. And at the top of the hour, I'll also make another announcement, which is that I really want to ask you guys to please be here next Sunday for the Crook and the Flail, because next Sunday is a very special date. It is a milestone birthday for our Naswt Biti, Sankhu Kheper, right? And so I just want to have you guys all here to be a part of that as we share and give him some energy and some love to celebrate his birthday next Sunday, July 5th. I'm looking forward to that. So I want to just put that out there and sow that seed for y'all so y'all can mark y'all calendars to be here to honor the milestone celebration of our Naswt Biti. Okay? That's it as far as I got for announcements. Okay.
So once again, I want to welcome the new students of the First Eye on Kemet. I just want to say that move that you made was actually your best move. As far as we're concerned, there's no competition. And that's no disrespect to any of our peers. Let me clarify the point. So we have no competition because we are our own unique expression. If we're honest, no one lays a lesson out the way I lay it with the different layers, and no one addresses and taxes a topic or a dialogue like Kemet does, and no one approaches the legacy like the Temple of Anu does. So we have our own unique expression. So when you have your own unique expression and you're following your spiritual imperative, there's no need to compete.
Yes.
So I want to give you a quote to put it in context. There's no need to compete because you're always inspiring your own self to go to your own next level or your new heights. So the competition is never outside. The competition is always with self, inside. So the deity within is always pushing us to go higher and harder. So there's a quote from Kemmunion. It says, "Those who are vigilant shall flourish, and those who are exact will be praised. Those who are vigilant shall flourish, and those who are exact shall be praised." Notice the word vigilant. You have the word vigil in it. So vigil means to stay up. It means those who stay up and stay on their purpose will flourish. Flourish is a word, wut, saruj, or waj. It represents vegetables and fruits. So it represents prospering. It represents abundance in whatever form that may take in your life. So it could be talking about financial flourishing. It could talk about spiritual flourishing. But the requirement is to stay vigilant, to stay on your purpose. So us, as far as the temple is concerned, we like to believe that we're in tune with our Creator. And we give an honest effort to stay in tune with nature. And we listen to the charge of our ancestors as they open the way. And our deity, our deities, our forces of nature, and our ancestors often give us challenges as we fulfill that imperative. And those challenges, when we stand up to them and when we accept them, it always brings the best out of us. And notice the rest of the quote says, "Those who are exact shall be praised." So we don't have to seek for distinction. Actually, it doesn't say in the 42 that we shouldn't seek for distinction.
Yes, I will not seek for distinction.
I will not seek for distinction. So when we all are born with our own nature-given talents and nature-given gifts.
Yes.
So now, how do you respect deity? How do you respect the force? How do you respect your God? How do you respect your goddesses? When you optimize and when you refine and when you master your gift or your talent. So when you master, optimize, and refine your nature-given gifts and talent, that is the distinction. So you don't have to seek for the distinction, just develop what was given to you. So just as a reminder, so if you find like you're not being recognized, maybe it's because you haven't refined, optimized, and built upon the gifts and the qualities you were given from the divine. So for those that's coming to the path, we're honored to be your first introduction to the Kemetic legacy, as well as your first introduction or the reintroduction. We consider the reintroduction and the return of high African civilization. So just to move it along, as of last week, sometimes I'm late. Sometimes y'all have to forgive me. I know last week was Father's Day and I was silent on the matter. You have to forgive me because we all come up differently, different backgrounds. Most people come from Judeo-Christian backgrounds, and we know there's pretty much like hundreds of sects of Christianity in the world. So when you say I got a Christian background, that means something different from everybody. What was your background? What was the denomination?
I grew up Methodist.
What was your
Congregational?
Congregational?
Atheist.
Episcopalian. So I came up in the Jehovah's Witness thing. So that those are just almost doctrines apart when it comes to Christianity.
Yeah.
So we all know that Jehovah's Witnesses doesn't celebrate any holidays. I really didn't start celebrating holidays until I got into the African spiritual systems and stuff. So days could just come and go, and it doesn't mean anything to me. They were actually I was kind of indifferent to the holidays. I don't even remember ever saying Happy Mother's Day or Happy Father's Day to my parents and stuff. So here we are, 1 week after the solstice and 1 week before my Earth Day. The summer is officially in. We're under solar energy, so it's only appropriate for me to address some things about manhood or fatherhood with some words of encouragement. See, now in the African context, some people can say, why do people celebrate Father's Day or Mother's Day like that? And I think sometimes we take our mentality and we project certain things onto like our African ancestors that just weren't there. Like we make this big deal out of making sure everything is African, that we created everything. And I don't think our ancestors were like that. Our ancestors were syncretists, meaning they took what worked. They wasn't so like we had to create everything, and if we didn't create it, we can't use it. Of course, you start with your home base. And if you find something that's not there at home base, then you're always open to see what works or see what other cultures' contribution may have addressed something that your culture may have not addressed. So now, when we consider Kemet, when we consider this Ma'atic culture, this balanced culture, we're always seeing the divine masculine and the divine feminine. You see the deities are always paired with their polar opposite or their contrast or their complement. So I would like to believe if those Kemetic ancestors were here today, which technically they are, through us, you are the ancestors.
Yes.
I like to believe that they would accept the concept like Mother's Day or Father's Day, where you're respecting the divine masculine and the divine feminine. So now, I usually don't get into the conversations about roles between men and women. Those are very polarizing topics in our community, and it's almost like we've been arguing about it amongst ourselves for the past couple of decades. So I don't want to necessarily talk about fatherhood. Before I can talk about fatherhood, we have to address manhood. So before you can be a good father, you have to be a good man. You have to be a good man before you can be a good father. So fatherhood is based off of the mastery of mastery or completion of the principles of being a man. So if that's, remember, we're talking ideally. So if that's the case, if the fatherhood is the completion of the mastery of the tools and the training that you received as a man, what does that say for a grandfather? So a grandfather should be ethereal. A grandfather should be out of this world. A grandfather should blow your mind. So in these days, we have the difference between man, father, and grandfather is often just reduced to age. So elders are olders. We consider elders senior citizens and not the whole paradigm, the whole level of thinking and spiritual manifestation of power and potential and influence that's supposed to come with being an elder, that's supposed to come with being a father. So I say that being a good man is a biological imperative. It's already there within us, but it has to be activated. It has to be activated by an image or example. And I think y'all know what we're talking about. It has to be an image or example to activate that thing that's in your DNA to make you live that thing out. Because if it's not activated, it goes dormant. And that's what we've been suffering as men in society, as melanated men, as you melanated men. It has not, the good man gene has not been activated. So you see it when you have attributes in little boys and they could be athletic, so you get them on the athletic team, you get them into sports, you find them a good coach, and therefore that seed of the warrior becomes activated. If you have a child that shows intellectual prowess, you try to get him so-called mentors as doctors or lawyers, because if they're in the presence of those people, it'll activate that. We've even seen the pathology. We've seen the pathology of black men that get exposed to the example of the thug or the street person, and now that negative expression of the warrior gets activated in the man, and they live that thing out. So what I'm saying is, we've tried everything. We've tried sports. We tried the warrior thing. We tried the doctors and lawyers, but we haven't given honest effort towards being good men. Those things, doctors, lawyers, sports people, that's good. Those are just attributes of the good man. The good man is the crowning glory of the male. Until you've mastered using your tools and your training to become a man, you're just a male at that. So, like I said, we've been going for decades having this conversation between men and women in our circles, in our communities, and it's almost like everything gets reduced to this conversation, almost like a one-upmanship on whose pain or whose trauma is the worst, whether it's the black man's pain or the black woman's pain is the most traumatic. And we've been arguing these points, and these points have actually caused a divide in our community, even down to how we phrase things. There was a time, I came up in a time when they said the black man is God, and that was very empowering. It was actually empowering to both genders. And then somehow it changed to the black woman is God. And then the men was like, hold up. So the women was like, well, we was cool when they was saying the black man is God, and we knew that it encompassed the black woman, and the black women didn't challenge the black man as God. But now they're saying the black woman is God, and for somehow the men feel challenged in that. Almost like saying, back when they were saying the original man was white, then you find out the original man was black. And it's like the teachings are starting to transition and change over the course of time. So your mentality or your spiritual maturity has to be flexible. It has to be fluid. Because what they say, only the strong survive. Only those who know how to adapt survives. So we're having this conversation now where it's making it seem where you're hearing a lot of people talk about femininity, the power of the feminine. No one's talking about the power of the masculine no more. And I just want to address that too much of something is just as bad as not enough of something. So yes, the feminine is powerful, but it's not all about the feminine. Yes, the feminine is powerful, but it's not all about the feminine. Yes, the masculine is powerful, and it's not all about the masculine. So what do we see? We see the feminine is talking about spirit, abundance of spirit. We're talking about things like feelings. So naturally, the woman or the female is the gatekeeper of the feminine. Men could tap it also, but naturally the women are the organic keepers of the feminine energy. However, it doesn't mean that every feeling, every intuition, every emotion that you have, it does not mean it's correct. Y'all get me? Just because it doesn't give you a right to divinize your personal feelings, your emotions and stuff. So some women exhibit sometimes what you can consider bipolar behavior emotionally. And when someone, especially when a male tries to check or to bring some balance, the men often get accused of not being strong enough to handle a strong woman. And I had conversations with my brother. A man should never have to handle a woman. So you should be a strong woman without a man having to be qualified to handle a strong woman. Because when you say needing a man, when you signify a man needing to be strong enough to handle a woman, it signifies her being out of control. So now the males are not off the hook either. So the masculine is dealing with cognition. The masculine is dealing with interpretation. So now the pathology for the man tends to be narcissism. The pathology for the man tends to be one who thinks they know it all and criticizes, condemns, and complains about everything and everybody else. So naturally, the divine masculine, the man is the natural organic gatekeeper of that energy. So the woman could tap it too, but the man is naturally the organic gatekeeper of that energy. So I have to do this contrast before I get into what it is that we're talking about when it comes to men. So I like to commend the woman for knowing their pain, commend the woman for owning their pain, commend the woman for working on releasing the pain. And sometimes they're messy with it, but I still commend them anyway. So they're going to the church, they're going to spirituality, they're going going to religion, all types of healing circles to deal with that pain. Now I have conversations with men. And when I have the conversation with the men be like, well, what about our pain? And it's almost like they're getting jealous of the women. Once again, I commend the women for dealing and having the courage to face their pain, no matter how ugly it is. So the men be like, well, what about our pain? Well, I say it is our responsibility, it is your responsibility, our responsibility to tell our story. Because if we don't tell our story, nobody will. So what happens with this tension between men and women is, so the women are vocal about their pain and what it is that they're doing about healing, while the men are not vocal. The men are suffering silently. The men are often ignoring the sources of their pain. The men spend time in philosophy and metaphysics trying to understand it. Just because you understand it is not the same as healing it. So while the women are doing religion, spirituality, healing circles, men are studying and doing research, going further and further outside of themselves and not doing the work inside of themselves. So now is the time, especially in this environment now, is the time for men to address our pain. So we listen, we could take the lead from the women on this. So what is the source of our trauma? Our source of our trauma is slavery and white supremacy. So the women come from it, from the perspective of the source is slavery and white supremacy. So they've been physically abused. They've been mentally abused. The women have to deal with misogyny at work. They have to deal with misogyny at home because often black men are imitating misogynistic behavior that they actually get from the European. And they're bringing it home. So the women got to deal with that misogyny at the workplace, misogyny at home. Dealing with also the absence of the masculine at home. So those are the various sources of pain that the women are dealing with that they're actually trying to heal from. And they're totally clear on that. And we always got to commend and bend the knee, hats off to the women for that. But that pain is not too much different from the man's pain. The man is also the result of white supremacy and slavery also. Physical abuse, mental abuse, sexual abuse also. We heard a buck breaking, right? So these sources of pain the men don't like talking about. We don't like admitting. But that pain is still there. And men are suffering silently. What about misogyny? How can misogyny affect a black man? Here we are. We're faced from since a young age. We're taught about the professional world. And we're taught as black men to subdue our masculinity, to subdue our testosterone. In order to be accepted amongst white folks, we got to shave our beards. In certain cultures, the bald face is close to feminine. And we got to raise the octave of our voice. We can't have the bass in our voice. We got to, hey, how you doing? So white folks don't feel so uncomfortable with us. So there's a feminizing of the black male, the lowering of the testosterone of the black male in order for the white male to feel secure. So it's a feminine, so that's a form of misogyny on the black man. So he has to deal with that at the workplace. Then he has to deal with the woman resisting so-called misogyny, or what she perceives to be misogyny at work, and misogyny coming from the man, not realizing many times the women are actually resisting even healthy expressions of the divine masculine. So men have to deal with this resistance from their mothers as well as their significant others. So we often deal with the trauma of the female not having, let's talk about the significance of the divine male or the healthy divine masculine presence. So we see without the presence of the father how it severely affects or impacts the woman when the man is not there. When the man abandons his woman or abandons his family, it psychologically traumatizes the woman on top of the trauma that she was already experiencing as a result of just being a black woman or melanated woman in America. Now, understand what that does to the psyche of the daughter. So the daughter is watching the mother respond, react to the absence of the divine masculine in their lives. So whether they say it verbally, there's usually energetically the woman can tend to be scorned. They can pass that behavior, whether directly or indirectly, on to the female. Now watch this. So if the pain is the same between the male and the female, it's just different variations, it takes on different polarity. So, okay, so the man was not there for the woman. It scorns the woman. The woman has a daughter. The daughter doesn't have a father. But understand, that daughter oftentimes have a brother also. So the black male is dealing with abandonment issues from the male also. So it impacts the female as well as the male equally in a sense. So maybe the behavior, what we're seeing with black on black violence with men, is the men's inability to process the betrayal or the abandonment of the masculine. So what we see in our community when men are trying to stand up and be men and flex their testosterone, the next man be like, you ain't no man, and they try to cut it down because essentially they're mad at the masculine or the failure or the lack of the presence of the masculine being there. So it's time for us men to proclaim our pain. It is not the women's place to know what our pain is. It is our time to have our dialogues amongst each other about what it is that is stopping us from releasing our power into the world, into ourselves, into our relationships. Men, we've been under this misnomer that we have to suffer silently. And we get this from a false or half-true notion of what you think a warrior is. Well, a lot of men in our heads, we're trying to be legends in our own minds that we're this ultimate warrior, and the warrior can show no weakness. So we're trying to poke our chests out, we're trying to fake it till we make it, which is appropriate sometimes. But I'm saying now is, if you don't acknowledge that you've been wounded, then you cannot be healed. I'll repeat it again. If you do not acknowledge that you're wounded, you cannot be healed. So just like a wound, you have to address. You have to address the wound. So psychologically, metaphysically, we have to address our wound. And there, you have to learn to be trained to how to address your wound and how to endure a certain level of pain. And while you endure a certain level of pain, you have to learn to move on. But you have to address that wound. For instance, so just because you've been hurt by a woman doesn't mean that you quit loving women and become homosexual. Because a lot of people on both genders, that's the impetus of them switching genders because they were hurt by the other gender. So that's not what that means, because you were hurt by the other gender that you switched genders. It does not mean just because you're hurt by the gender that you can never trust the gender again. You see, we have to now address the immaturity that goes along between both genders. So it's okay, so you were hurt. Were you going into the relationship with intelligence? Were you going in starry-eyed? Did you listen to your boys or your men when they told you to watch out for that girl? Did you listen to your elder when your elder told you to watch out for that girl? Did you get a reading if you knew anything about getting a reading? So as you see, there's always various factors that the deity, your ancestors, are always trying to yell or at least whisper in your ear the what's up. And even if it goes bad, it's still a lesson that you learn about yourself. It's never about the other person. It comes down to what have you learned about yourself. So here we're dealing with men that's carrying trauma from not just their disappointment in life, but a lot of times a disappointment in their parents. Both parents. Do we ever deal with the men who weren't raised by a nurturing mother? Just because you have the presence of a mother don't mean you have the nurturing love of a mother. Sometimes it is challenging for a mother to love a son who's coming in the image of the man that abandoned her. So some women are left to just be dutiful to their sons. Like, okay, food, clothing, and shelter for the sons, but not necessarily nurturing for their son. Have we considered, because of that angst in the heart of the female sometimes, that they set their sons up for failure? So they teach the daughters how to win in life, use what you got to get what you want, and tell the men to be nice to the women. No matter what she do to you, whether she verbally abuse you, physically, don't do nothing to her. So it's like you sending a man into slaughter for a whole genre of women that's there to take advantage of some of the men. And I'm not blaming the women. I'm just saying this is a phenomenon that's going on in the houses of us melanated folks. So what do? What is the man supposed to do? So you're disappointed in your mother, disappointed in your father. You have no example. So how do we activate the good man gene? How do we activate the divine gene? We have to first deal with the fact that we've been injured. We've been hurt. We've been hurt by the disappointment of our fathers. Disappointed by sometimes the example of our own mothers. So what is the resolution? I'll give you a series of things that we could address as far as resolution. I would say you're not going to like it, or we don't like it within our community. I say the first step for most black men, especially if you've been physically abused or sexually abused, you're going to have to get counseling. We don't like that word in the community. Why can't I just, sometimes we just throw ourselves into spirituality. Spirituality is good for the spirit, but psychology deals with the psyche, the mind. Sometimes you have to get the mind right in order to open the way for spirit. And a lot of times we're very judgmental of the healers within our tradition, because a lot of times you see them as your peers. You be like, well, they up in the matrix just like me, so I don't know if I could trust them. So fine, then go to a professional psychiatrist. Just know that they're up in the matrix like you, so they just got a different veneer on how they present an environment that makes you feel comfortable enough for you to submit to your healing process. So sometimes it's good to get that psychologist that's there, that's totally objective, that's not your peer, that's going to force you to be honest with yourself and not lie. And I will also say get spiritual counseling, not do one first and then the other. So yes, get your spiritual counseling along with your psychological counseling. With the spiritual counseling, what you get is, now we have this conversation, are we talking about an ancestral curse? We're talking about spirit attachments. We're talking about demonic connections, demonic possessions. We're talking about cords. We're talking about karma, ancestral work that needs to get done. And you'll be surprised oftentimes that the conclusions the psychologists have is going to be the same conclusion the spiritualist has about the read on your situation. Another thing I suggest that men do is every healthy man, able-bodied man, should take at least 6 months of martial arts training. Every man should have at least 6 months of martial arts training, not no soft martial arts like Tai Chi. I'm talking about some combat arts where you got to get dirty, where you got to dig deep. You have to know what it feels like when another human being is trying to impose their will upon you. If you don't stand a chance in this world, not these days. You need to know how it feels for another man to impose their will upon you. You need to know how it feels to impose your will upon another man. Martial arts is a healthy expression of that energy. In my opinion, when men don't have that healthy expression of that energy, they tend to turn upon their women. They tend to turn upon their families. You see, that's essentially what's happening to the police officers. They're a warrior archetype without a healthy expression of how to release that energy. So they're bringing it home to the family, the kids, and the wives, and things like that. So if you get in a healthy or balanced martial arts program that has a spiritual system that goes along with it, that could be the best thing. For instance, you need to know pain. We spend a lot of our time avoiding pain. You need to know, become very familiar with pain. That's why you're a responsible martial arts teacher. So in martial arts, you can have a finger lock or a wrist lock or arm lock. And there's different degrees of pain that can pose upon the body. You as a man, you need to know those different levels. You need to know it could be something, see that little movement like that. That I call that a micro adjustment. As a man, you should know how to do micro adjustments, and that could be the difference of somebody breaking your arm and somebody just spraining your arm. That micro adjustment could mean the difference when somebody got their foot on your neck and you can't breathe. You make that micro adjustment so it still comes off as though they got you subdued, but you won't die from it. Y'all understand where I'm going with this? How this is necessary in the development of a balanced man. A man also needs to take 6 months of yoga concurrently with that martial arts. So yoga is about stretching the body, yes, but yoga is really about addressing your organs and your glands, especially your glands. Your glands release hormones. Hormones are chemical messengers that pretty much communicate to your organs and the rest of your body on how to stay healthy. So healthy hormones supports a healthy mind. So here you go. You're addressing the psyche with the psychologist. You're addressing that opens the way for spirit. The martial arts or the spirit opens the way for that energy to be released into the physical body. Yoga balances that energy that's been released into the physical body. So healthy hormones supports a healthy mind. And then also concurrently dietary overhaul. 6 months of dietary overhaul. You might have to go to extreme alkaline diet. Not to say that extreme alkaline diet is the penultimate. You might have to go extreme alkaline to counterbalance the extreme acidity that you've been living in several decades of the time. So there's a thing called acid thoughts, alkaline thoughts. So now just check that out. So you get your counseling, psychological counseling, get your spiritual counseling, take your martial arts, take your yoga, change your diet. And lastly, commit to your spiritual work. We're talking about Hesi, which is chants or mantras, Hekau, words of power. The Hesis and the Hekau, they address what I call the grooves in your mind. So there's certain patterns of behavior due to certain traumas that created grooves in your mind. And your mind is like a record that plays, and you got certain skips in your record that's keeping you repeating certain experiences. That's what karma is. So when you go with the Hesi, the mantras, the Hekau, the words of power, is creating a new record, new grooves in your mind. So what did they say there's a Kemetic proverb, when you magnify Neter, Neter magnifies you. So when you're replacing those old grooves with the words of Neter, the metal Neter in your mind, you become the divine being. Also concurrently with ancestral work. So you see, your life as a man, and this goes on both genders too. Everything I'm saying could go to the females too. So your life could totally change within 6 months of commitment on different running or addressing the different cylinders on which we run by. So now, to bring it all home, to keep it practical, every man doesn't always have a role model to look towards. For the men that don't have role models to look towards, that's why we have the myths. Contemplating the myths for your personal examples. So we can't throw away religion, we can't throw away spirituality, because those are various lessons that's in there that if you don't have people in your life to teach you those things, you can learn from these holy books and sacred texts. The myths are encoded with timeless truths about self, nature, and existence. I say it again, the myths are encoded with timeless truths about self in your relationship with nature and existence themselves. So the men like to espouse the idea of the deity Heru. What does Heru mean to you, just generally?
Foresight.
Foresight. What about you? You got me on dead.
Yeah.
I got company in the room. He said flight. So Heru, what was that?
I would say precision.
He says precision. He says precision. So Heru is the embodiment of the will. in the physical being. Heru is the falcon, has the falcon head upon the body. So that's symbolic of the heads in the heavens while the feet are on the ground. So what is the saga of Heru? We have the story of Heru, in which he has to fight this being called Satesh that killed Heru's father. Heru's father was the king or the father of the legacy. He tried to avenge his father and didn't do too well. He had to go get counseled by Jehuti, which is the sage, which is the elder. Let's go back with it. So you have the opposition, you have the father figure. So the father figure as Asar can actually represent the legacy. In this situation, Satesh can actually represent white folks or the European or the spirit of the world at this time, which is a very aggressive spirit. That ain't giving you nothing. You're gonna have to take back your throne. He thinks it's his, and that's why he took your father out of it. So Asar, the father, is now in the realm of the ancestors. Now remember back on Black Panther, he was able to still connect with his father. He took that purple herb and he got in the Asarian position, and he went to the realm of the ancestors to get wisdom and insight from his father. So in that saga with Heru actually learned martial arts from Asar in the spiritual dimension. He learned the warrior art from Asar in the spiritual dimension. So he came back from trance and still was getting with his uncle. It's all family. It's still all interconnected. As much as we try to separate ourselves from white folks, they still are, for lack of a better word, a degenerated versions of ourselves. You still got to deal with it. So he came back to deal with his uncle. They said this fight took 40-something years, and they were going through different forms, different animal forms. And Satesh still put his eye out with feces, so it wasn't martial arts. He threw feces in his eye, which is the distractions. Feces is manure. We understand manure from Kheper. Kheper's rolling the dung. The dung is symbolic of the manure of experience, life. So from that manure comes the Kheper, the new life. So from the experience of life, you can rebirth yourself. So Satesh throws life at you, throws the distractions of life at you to get your eye off of him.
Yes.
And what did he have to do? He had to go to Jehuti, the sage, the elder. For some people, they will say mentor. He had to go get counseling because the elder is the closest thing to your father, closest thing to your ancestors, the gatekeeper of the legacy of your ancestors. So he restored Heru's eye. So he submitted to the counsel of the elder on how to address this warrior god. Understand, Satesh was the warrior god. He had that down. Heru was just a baby in that. So he was technically outclassed. So when Heru got with Satesh, after the training from his father, after the wisdom of the oracle, right when he was about to best Satesh, what happened to you? Y'all know what happened? Who interrupted the fight? Naswt. And what was Heru's reaction to Naswt?
He cut off her head.
He cut off her head. And then how did she get her head back?
She replaced it with the cow, with the head of a cow.
Jehuti replaced it with the head of a cow. So the cow was the great mother. The cow was the great nurturer. So what is this story telling us? It's telling us in order for a man to be complete, he's going to have a father figure in his life. If he can't find it in life, he's going to have to find it through the myths, because the myths are your story. He's going to have to be in tune with his ancestors. So say if your father wasn't right, you're going to have to learn how to get initiated on one of these systems. You're going to have to learn how to heal your family line through ancestral work.
Yes.
What else you're going to need? You're going to need an elder.
Yeah.
Or a so-called mentor, somebody to play, somebody outside of yourself when you're not listening to the divine within. You're going to need an expression of that thing as a person outside of yourself to get you sober when you're going down a path you might not need to go down. You're going to need a good woman in your life. That woman could be your mother, that could be an aunt, and that could be your woman. Understand what this story revealed to us about the so-called warrior archetype. The warrior archetype is inclined to be very violent, that he actually turned on his own woman and metaphorically cut her head off. That's not good. That's why you need the father figure. That's why you need the mentor or the sage or the elder. And it becomes the elder's responsibility to check that warrior. So the warrior has to serve under the elder, to check that warrior, to respect that woman, to respect your mother. So you ain't getting away from respecting the woman. So yeah, we can rah-rah and pat ourselves on the back. Yeah, the man, the warrior, but you ain't getting past respecting the woman. You're not getting past respecting the mother or your mother, no matter what it is that she did. If you can't love your mother, find another mother-like figure for you to love and get that nourishment from. There's abundance of feminine energy out here in this world, so no man is really motherless when you look at it. It might be your girl's mother that becomes your surrogate mother, but there's abundance of feminine energy because that is the expression of femininity. It's just abundance. There's no excuse for a man not to be able to tune into or tap or connect with that feminine energy. It could be a sister in the temple that could serve that. You know what I'm saying? And not lastly, you need training.
Yes.
Training from that elder, training from that father figure, training from that ancestral tradition. And lastly, you need a worthy opponent. So without a worthy opponent, none of that other stuff means anything. So you're put here as a man, as a God in the flesh to solve problems. And Satesh got that problem for your behind. Satesh, in whatever form it comes in, whether it's coming in the form of I ain't got a job, whether it's coming in the form of what you call a white man or a European man, you're going to need a worthy challenge to have to tap the depths of your soul and bring forth your divinity to demonstrate your divinity.
Yes.
So let's bring it on home. So now, for the men, in 2020, there's no excuse. It is no longer acceptable for you to be suffering silently. Reading books is no longer good enough. Studying is no longer just good enough. You can no longer espouse knowledge over love. You can no longer espouse the love of knowledge over love. Or no longer espouse the love of knowledge over the love of one another. If all of those books you're reading, if all that science you're studying ain't helping you show up as a better man for yourself, for your significant other, or for your family, then it was worth nothing at all. So what I'm saying that this is a charge for the men. Why am I saying this in the first place? Actually, when we got off the call last week, remember I asked you about what is the demographics? And I felt like it's mainly women listening to us. That's why sometimes I fall back and let him do the talking, because the women be like, yes, sister, teach, sister, such and such. And the brothers don't be making themselves known. Then we did the demographics to find out the majority of our viewership is men. 54% of our viewership is men. And I was like, oh, okay. And that put things in perspective. Like, okay, I got to craft a message or messages charging and challenging the men also. So with that being said, the men, we can no longer be good or okay with the women doing all the work. The women are showing up in the churches, the mosques, the religions, and even our spiritual traditions. The women are showing up ready to do the work no matter what pain they've been through before they became conscious, or even after they came conscious. The women are constantly giving black men another chance, consciously giving God another chance, or goddess another chance, or spirituality another chance. So the men, you cannot afford to rest on your laurels and let the women do all the work and think that you could just come in there and they're going to bend the knee and just respect you as the God King. Now, what does it say? So I go back to Kemmunion at the beginning. It said, those who are exact shall be praised. So you got work to do. I laid out some of the principles on what that work may look like. So in closing, I had developed the idea of something called the Empower Men Conference. It was supposed to happen sometime at the end of the summer or in the fall, but since we've had this quarantine, we had to put it on delay. I might actually have to bring it to Patreon. So the men, that's the 54% of our listeners, if you're up for that challenge and you're up for this continued dialogue about what does it mean to be a man slash father, then you hit us up in the email immediately. Don't wait for next week. Let me know you out there. Let me know I got your attention, and we could get it moving sooner before later on how we're going to move forward and into our healing, because the woman, our children, and our unborn generations are waiting for us to live in our divine truth. On that note, I'm in the message.
To our answer.
So I
Yes.
can-
I know. I'm like, I don't got the tune in voice. I don't got the. Yeah, there we go. See? Yes. Yes. Dua, Naswt. It's greatly appreciated. And I mean, like, these are conversations that we've had internally for a long time.
Dua Baba.
Yes. And it's so important and so key to bring it out and to have this conversation with the community, right? Because from my perspective, from a woman's perspective, I see so much frustration from the women online. And that's something I've expressed to you on many occasions. I see so much frustration from those sisters about them throwing themselves into their spiritual work, throwing themselves into healing themselves, into building themselves,
That's right.
and into becoming goddesses. And then you got like basic males. Like, nah, brother, you gotta be a god if you want to mess with a goddess.
Sure.
You gotta be a god. You gotta come correct, right? And the brothers just haven't yet gotten to that space, or not enough women are seeing.
Side, funny.
Right? Not enough women are seeing enough brothers step themselves up and step their game up and step their work up and commit to their healing and commit to becoming the men that they are meant to become. So I know you answered, I saw a couple questions in the chat. You answered some of those questions, but I'm going to go to the comments anyway, just so we could talk about, we got a comment. Can you do the conference online? Brothers, how y'all feel about that? Speak up, y'all. Let me see. Resistance of healthy forms of the divine male is a result of misogyny. Can you name some modern forms for us, please? Quick bullet points that can be used in a convo, like modern forms of the divine male, right? That's what you're asking about. I can't name, like, off the top of my head some quick modern forms, but I'll say, like what Naswt said about looking to the myths. To me, that's a major part of the answer. Is if we want to know what healthy manhood looks like and healthy masculine expression looks like, we look at Jehudi, we look at Ra, we look at Haru, we look at Kansu, we look at Shu, we look at Geb. You understand? We look at Ptah, right? You look at the Netaru, and you find manhood and masculinity divine in those archetypes, in their healthy expressions. And in some of the myths, you find the unhealthy expressions too. Like, we find the healthy expression of Satesh in his riding in the solar bark. We find the unhealthy expression of Satesh in his murdering of Asar. So the myths show us what it looks like to be healthy men and unhealthy men. And but that was a good question. We would have to work further on terms
that's
of the
an ongoing dialogue, because we haven't seen it. It's just been a hypothesis. It's just been the idea. We've identified with our trauma so long that we don't even know what a healthy male looks like. So in our teachings within the temple, we say the healthy male is a balance of 4 major attributes, which is the warrior, the lover, the king, and the sage. So we have conversations and trainings developed on basing those, on building and evolving those characteristics within the body of a male. And when you've completed your training and then in those things, then we're looking at the possibility of what the man is supposed to look like. But it's supposed to be balance of those. Usually when people think of a man, they think he's just got to be the warrior, or they think he's just got to be the king, or they wait for him to be the elder before he's the sage. It's like, no, it has to be a balance of all those things that's active in your personality at all times.
Yes, yes. All right. A lot of brothers think that the barbaric gangster image is trending. Meanwhile, the heart is much too heavy, and being in a long period of defense mode, you're blocking your heart chakra.
True.
Yeah. And like Mrs. said, if you're blocked, then your energy is not flowing. If your energy is not flowing, then your hormones are not right. Then you can't muster the will. You can't muster the strength. Then you're not operating at full capacity, right? At any point in time. So I currently read The Way of a Superior Man, and it says men are supposed to live with a broken heart. So I know you said you were saying that we need to heal, like men need to heal their hearts. So what would you say to that? Do you feel like that's a conflict? Go ahead.
No, you live through the broken heart. And that's what I'm saying. You cannot avoid the counseling. So in that book, he doesn't deal with counseling or spiritual consultations. So those will be supplements into how to live that philosophy. Remember, our philosophy is living in truth. So you need to learn through the various modes on how to live your truth.
Baba says, I admire how you tapped into that scene in Black Panther. Tapping into the ancestral realm is considered pseudo by some of our scholars with calcified pineals.
Sure.
But again, we're holistic, so we think about health and we think about wellness spiritually, physically, mentally, and emotionally. So cleaning your diet without connecting to your ancestors and healing your ancestral lineage is incomplete. Doing martial arts without cleaning your diet is incomplete. You know, even going to counseling without cleaning your diet or without doing martial arts is incomplete. So you got to have the well-rounded, just like the jet pillar, you got to address all four tiers of the jet pillar: spiritual, mental, emotional, and physical. And that's how you have that backbone like a saw, right? Let me see. Says, become a human rights policy officer, take back the community, region, country, and world established for freedom, justice, equality, and total independence under the matriarch. We coming back home. So that's it. Jehudi Miss said, also get a spiritual reading as part of your spiritual counseling. Yes, that's right, Jehudi Miss. Divination is necessary. I would imagine anyone who you're getting spiritual consultations with is going to do readings for you. Absolutely. Who are men supposed to go to? What are they supposed to do? I feel like you addressed that thoroughly in the resolution. And again, I think you also gave us an opportunity for the men to continue that dialogue in the Empowerment Conference. So I saw a couple people who already said that they were interested in that. So that's what's up. I'm totally.
All 54% of our
yes,
listenership.
all 54%.
Just a couple. That's an insult. No disrespect for the couple, of course. Those ones that stood up, actually, those are the warriors, and I respect that.
Yes.
No fear.
Many men think that revealing our pain is a sign of weakness. Stress is a main source of immune deficiency among men. Yeah.
That suffering silently thing again. Black men don't like going to the doctor. So if you don't go to the doctor, at least go to your holistic healer. Find out what's going on with you. So between your holistic healer and your spiritual reader, they could come up with pretty much something similar to what the doctor could come up with. So you got to address yourself one way or another. There's no getting around it.
True. Got a lot of comments saying they love this deep teaching.
Sure.
Masculine evolution of consciousness includes feminine divine consultation. Yes. Okay. Our sister Sakara says, when I say fear and love in the same sentence, it is because, in my opinion, love is fundamentally the road to procreation on the cellular level. Children represent the power of that organic chemistry. Many men, not all, but many, have a post-traumatic relationship with the idea of love, family, and children, and economics. The system created a permanent gap that many wish to continue paddling in. This is not judgment, but just observable truths. Yeah, that is very powerful.
Who said that?
Sakara.
Yeah. Sakara for that insight.
Yeah.
That's profound.
Very, very. I would imagine that's that there's a lot of truth in that. I agree with that significantly. Jehudi said, "Take care of your body, or your body will take care of you."
Okay.
Then we got from Harmony, a lot of men are suffering from bipolar disorder, which can often disable them from getting the help they need. Can you speak to that?
You gotta get that counseling.
Yeah, I will start by just acknowledging that in the Black community, counseling in general is not seen as favorable. Many people see counseling as something that like it's like a white people thing, and so that automatically creates a stigma to even getting the diagnosis that you are bipolar or that something else is going on with you, because many of us, as the started talking about growing up in the church, we were taught that you have an issue, you go to your pastor, right? You go to Jesus. You don't go to a counselor.
Mm-hmm.
So as we come into consciousness and we leave the church, we then put ourselves in a position where we don't actually have a place to go. And that's why Naswt said you got to get initiated. Like, you got to become a part of a village. You got to have an elder. You got to have a priest. You got to have a guide. You can't just be out here a lone wolf. It's not only unhealthy to you, but it's also anti-African to be disconnected. It's not the African way. So you have to be connected to your ancestry, to your elders, to a culture, to a tradition, to a way of life, to a structure, because that's the source of our empowerment. And I think we spoke about this before, but anybody who tells you not to be connected, I would be wary of that. You know, any advice that you get from people telling you like, oh, you don't need to connect to anything. You don't need to like just be your own person, be your own man. Like, nah, like every man who accepts the responsibility and the charge of divine manhood is connected to something.
Sure.
Because divine manhood does not exist in a vacuum on its own. It exists in combination and culmination with the divine feminine in order to create and maintain and manifest life and to perpetuate ma'at, right? So it's a union, right? And so if you are a divine man and you are exhibiting the divine masculine, you understand that you have to live in harmonious union with others in order for you to demonstrate that.
And for the men, the so-called real men, you have to stop hiding. Stop hiding and letting the fake men and thugs get all the shine and misconstruing the people on what the masculine actually is.
Yeah.
Stop hiding your light. Get out there and shine your light and be the examples for those that are disturbed in mind, experience, and spirit, know where to look. Because if you're hiding in disguise like you're not significant and you're nobody, then they're never going to know. So they're left to their own wiles and they're left to the nonsense of the world that's actually devouring men. So the real men got to actually stand up and be unapologetic about their connection to spirit, their tradition, and their divine expression of the masculine.
Yes.
That's really it, because you have to be so profound with your example that your example is inviting people to heal. So you can't go out there like, I'm going to heal my community. Let me be so profound in my own personal example and how I smell, how I look, the words that I speak, and that then they got the men and the women be like, yo, where you hang at? Where I need to go? Is there more people like you?
Yeah.
Or else you left to being on the corner passing out flyers, hoping somebody read it later and hoping they don't discard it later. But it's going to come down your personal example.
Yeah.
That's it. That's what you can do. You can't force anyone to get any type of counseling. So you could just be that example of what a wholesome person looks like.
Yes. So we got a lot of men are PTSD or narcissistic. Same with some women who never had a real father figure.
Yeah.
Yeah, Naswt covered that. He did acknowledge that was narcissism specifically is a negative attribute, and when the masculine energy is imbalanced.
It all starts with dialogue. It all starts with things like the Empower Men Conference. We can only help if the men have the courage to show up. Or else it's just the ones who already is kind of like preaching to the choir. The ones who know already show up. It just that becomes a small circle. So that if you know that there's some type of imbalance, you're gonna have to have the courage at least to seek help. have the courage at least to have a conversation. And the women get those men to the places where they are having those conversations. Make it a qualification. If they're gonna continue to deal with a person like you, they're gonna have to have conversations with real men, because you don't have to sit there and tolerate to be used and abused as a man trying to work his stuff out with no training. That's never gonna go good. If he's trying to work himself out with no training, no guidance, no eldership, or no nothing, it's not going to go good. So you might need to make that part of your requirements in order to be part of your life as a woman, that they have to go connect with real powerful, positive, strong men.
Yeah.
And that, of course, that's more work for the handful of men that do got their thing together, but that's what we're here for. We here, that's why they call it work.
Right.
We're here to do the work. We ain't here to lounge under the coconut trees and drink coconut water. I know some people think that's what existence is supposed to be here. No. We're here to do work.
Yeah.
We're here to establish the divine kingdom on earth.
Yes. And to just expound on that a little further, like, a lot of women are starting to require that of the men in their lives, and I see a lot of that in social media, that women are not settling for being in any old relationship. They like, I'd rather be by myself. So 2 generations ago, women used to be scared to be by themselves, and they would accept any old thing from any old man. And now they're like, no, I'm good, sir. I will be single without you if you don't get your act together. And I'm totally fine with that. A lot of women are finding their peace with just, with being healthy and being whole without having bad men, or males, let's call them males, in their lives. Like, if you're not going to step your game up, sir, I'm not interested. And, a lot of males are dissatisfied. I've seen a lot of dissatisfaction coming from males, immature males, on social media about that. But I don't think that the women are asking anything unreasonable. Like I said before, you got to be a god to step to a goddess. You got to be at least working on yourself, just as she's working on herself, and she's, going to goddess circles and the spiritual circles and getting her readings and getting her counseling and doing her yoga and doing her ancestral work, and you just on the couch, like, it's no longer acceptable. There has to be a partnership of equals, and you have to be coming in your divine space in order to accept and be prepared for a woman who is in her divine space.
Yeah.
And vice versa. She got to do that as well. If you're in your divine space, she got to step up and be in her divine space as well. But we see a lot of women doing that work, and it's time. I'm glad that you said that it's time for the men to do that work, because it's needed, and it's not happening. Like, men are not doing it on their own, so we got to get it together. Like, I really hope that you all get the Empowerment Men Conference.
Because it created an imbalance in our society. So to address one of the comments that talked about separation is necessary to release toxins. So yes, separation is necessary in its temporary sense. So we have to separate ourselves from the toxic approach to relationships. So yes, the women might have to separate to heal themselves and become whole. Now it's time for men to separate from even the idea of having sex. Men are addicted to the idea of sex, so you might have to abstain from that so you could become healthy and whole, so we can reintegrate into a healthy, wholesome relationship.
Yes. Yeah. So a lot of healing needs to be done.
Yeah.
And I'm looking.
It can be done in just 6 months.
In just 6 months? So I'm looking forward to the continuation of this conversation, because healing work is not one dialogue. It's not one conversation. And so this is not the end of this dialogue, and the end of this conversation is just the opening of the way to addressing the men directly, and something that's been bold and really brave, because I don't see a lot of men doing this. And so, Dua Netta for this dialogue and for this opportunity. I want to thank you guys, those of you who have sent donations already for this work and for this gift and for this conversation, this dialogue, this energy that we've given you guys today. If anyone is open to and feels that their heart is open to giving a donation to the work that we're doing, you can do so on Cash App. It's $ Temple of Anu. You can also use PayPal, templeofanu@gmail.com on PayPal. We greatly appreciate the donations. that allow us to continue our work and continue to invest in the building of our community, to the things that we offer as a community, our classes, our workshops, our services, etc. And what Naswt shared today was so powerful. I really do. I really am grateful for that, and I really do hope some of y'all feel touched in your hearts and in your wallets. Give thanks.
And it's not over. I'm going to continue with the dialogue also.
Yes.
One way or another.
And as we always say, if you cannot give a donation, that's okay too, because we will be here next Sunday at 3 p.m. for the Crook and the Flail, our regularly scheduled show. We start at 3 p.m. because next Sunday is the Shrine of Ma'as Ascension. They start at 12 noon, and so we start at 3 p.m. after Ascension. And next Sunday, as I mentioned, we will also be acknowledging the milestone celebration of Naswt Biti's Harumas, his day of birth.
The birth of God in the flesh.
The birth of God in the flesh, yes. Our chief, our king, and our high priest and our founder. We're so grateful for your life. And so we're going to celebrate that next Sunday at 3 p.m. at the Crook and the Flail. So I look forward to seeing you all there. Dua Netter, and thank you again for joining us today and always. All right? Shemi Mateb, everybody.
What's up?